In this video, we're going to look at what you need to do for the Module 2 project. Once you open the Module 2 project, it will walk you through using the template, the different sections of computational thinking. So they're going to be giving you a problem. That problem is that you're designing uh, appropriate clothing for a destination. So they have vacation attire. You've been hired to create a computer program to help the clothing store's customers select and purchase an outfit for their vacation. So it might be based off of the season, it might be based off of the colors, it might be based off of gender, and any other thing that you might think of that would fit along with choosing appropriate attire for a vacation. Or you can choose the choose your own adventure, which is very similar. Um, whatever you choose, your program needs to include some certain things. You'll be using print statements so that you have a description of your online store for the user to read. You're going to have to obtain user input so that you can make a recommendation. So you're going to have at least a minimum of 3 input statements, and you can decide what those input statements will be, whether they're using int, floats, or string functions, or if you even need to include those with the input. Then this is going to test whether you know how to use if-else or elif statements. And you have to include at least one nested if-else or elif statement. So in other words, you're going to be making a choice, and then within that choice, you're going to be making some other choices. And that's what we use nested if-else statements for. Okay. Finally, you're going to be using logical operators. Logical operators mean that you're going to be taking 2 Boolean statements and combining them into one test. So, for example, if the gender is female and their favorite color is blue. So you'll need to think through your program to plan what inputs you want to ask, or in other words, what criteria, and then which will be your main criteria that'll be in the outside if statement, and then what will be the 2 sub criteria that would be in the nested if statement. So let's look at that as a program. Okay, so as always, when you're working on any Python program, make sure you have your name, both first and last, the date and the purpose of the program. I always define the main function, and then I call it at the very end. Uh, You can take your pseudocode and put it in here as comment tags to guide you. That's always a good idea. But basically what I've done is I'm asking the user for their name. So let's run the program and see how it works first. So it's going to ask me for my name. It's going to ask me what my destination is. And in this case, I'm giving them some specific choices. So if you think about it, when you're working with if-else statements, it's going to be a lot easier if you have some specific choices for the person to narrow it down rather than just saying, what is your destination? So I'm going to type 1 for Charlotte. And then it says, please select the season in which you will be traveling. And I need to put either spring break or winter break. So I'm going to put winter break. And then it asks me to select my gender, and I'm going to put female. Click OK. And the program uses that information to come back and tell me what I should wear for a winter holiday in Charlotte if I'm a female. So it's going to tell me a Polartec sweater, a puffy jacket, lined pants, Gore-Tex boots. Okay. All right. So now how did I get to that? First, I set up my variable. So I have a variable asking what my name is. Next, I got 3 destinations for them to choose from. So I have them say type 1 for Charlotte, 2 for Orlando, 3 for San Diego, and notice the single quotation marks around the input that I want the user to type. Then I'm asking them for their season, and again, input, and this can just be a string, and they can either put in spring break or winter break. And then I'm asking them for their gender. So again, I don't need int or float here because these are going to automatically come in as strings. So I put input, please select a gender. And again, what I want them to type, I have in single quote marks. Right? Then I've got some print statements, and now I've got to make my calculations. So I reminded myself that I need to use a nested if statement, and I have to have a logical operator. Notice that if my main function is out here, I have to tab or I have to indent for the first if statement. So I'm going to say as my outside decision statement for them to pick their location. So if their location equals 1, all right, and notice the double equal sign here for equals 1, and if their gender is male, double equal sign, and there's my logical operator, the season equals spring break, then it's going to print this. Else, if the gender is male and the season is winter break, it's going to print this. Right? Notice now I have to go back out at the same level that I have this if gender equals female and the season is spring break, it's going to print this. Else, it's going to print that for winter break. Then I go back out to my outside if statement, and if my location is 2, and I do exactly the same thing. My inner statements are going to have test if the person is male, and if the season is spring break, what they're going to wear. Else, and notice I'm doing if else because I've only got 2 choices. If you're doing more choices than that, like let's say you were doing spring, fall, and winter attire, then you would be using if statements. But I'm just giving them 2 choices. So it's just spring break or winter break. So I've got an if and an else statement. Okay, and then I go to my next one. If gender is female and season is spring break, and I've got an if and an else statement. Okay, probably the trickiest part of working with nested if statements is to get all of the indentations correctly. So it's always the if statement and then under the if statement what I want to have happen if that if statement is true. Else, which is going to be at the same level as the if statement, what I want to have happen if this is true. Right. And then finally, I just finished up some print statements to make it look more attractive, and I called my main function. That's really all there is to the 2.06 project. If you, it does take a little bit of troubleshooting sometimes to get your if-else statements to work. One technique you can work through is make sure you get the first part working. And then once that works, then use that to help you write for locate the second location and use that to write for the third location. This program I only went through 2 locations, but you get the idea because I would literally just take the same thing, copy and paste it, and then alter it a little bit for location number 3. Again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give me a call.